I've really missed Lara Croft on handheld consoles. She was all over the PSP when the Legend trilogy of Tomb Raider was happening, but outside of that odd Lara Croft Go puzzle game on the Vita, and a little cameo when she showed up in Fortnite as a collectible skin, she hasn't properly shown up on a handheld in the past 2 generations. But finally she's returned. Not in the form of Tomb Raider, but a spin-off series that kind of turned her franchise into an isometric twin-stick shooter, combining both Guardian of Light and Temple of Osiris. Here is my review of the Lara Croft collection for the Nintendo Switch. When it comes to story, this collection has 2 within it. Guardian of Light shows Lara taking a mirror from a temple and unleashing the Aztec god Xolotl, and must work with ancient guardian Totec in order to prevent him from regaining his power. And then we have Temple of Osiris, where Lara is traveling with fellow archaeologist Carter, whom, surprise, takes an artifact from a temple and unleashes the Egyptian god known as Set. Lara and Carter are cursed and have to work with other Egyptian gods to stop Set from covering the world in darkness. The stories here are interesting to think about, but not all that engaging. Guardian of Light has very little dialogue outside of a couple small scenes here and there, and the villain constantly just taunting and running away from you. And Temple of Osiris does have more dialogue, but doesn't get really deep outside of you just getting little pieces here and there during progression. It's alright, but nothing fantastic. The more interesting question is timeline placement or lack thereof. A lot of people associate these games with the Legend trilogy, with Guardian borrowing Underworld's graphics engine, lots of sound effects recycled from those games, and they've even brought Keely Hawes back to voice Lara from doing her in the Legend trilogy, even after she'd been replaced by Camilla Luddington in Tomb Raider 2013, which was actually developed before Temple of Osiris. Unfortunately, the actual answer is a little less exciting. These games are a standalone thing, not connected to any of the 3 Tomb Raider continuities. Despite sharing the same voice actress and the Legend costume being unlockable in both of these games, this is not the same Lara from Legend Anniversary and Underworld. When it comes to gameplay, this is a collection of 2 games, Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light that originally released on PS3 and 360, as well as Lara Croft and the Temple of Osiris that came out on PS4 and Xbox One. They're isometric action games with a heavy emphasis on puzzle solving and twin-stick shooting. As you play, you'll control Lara Croft through tombs and dungeons, shooting down enemies and moving things around to solve puzzles. Now on the Switch, we get both of these games with almost all DLC packed in. The only piece I noticed missing was Guardian of Light's Legacy of Kain crossover add-on, though they did change the co-op multiplayer a little bit. You can still do co-op in both of these games, but local only. You can't do it online like you could back on the PS3. Now progression is a little different between the games. They're both arcade-style action games. In Guardian of Light, you play in stages or levels, where you start a stage and traverse through the area and then move on to the next. It's very arcade-like with its design of constantly going into starting and results screen, not really having any sort of hub or overworld, just a little level select screen as you go from one stage to the next, and all of the levels have little goals and challenges where you can increase your score and unlock little add-ons like costumes or health and ammo upgrades. Now when you get into the levels, you control Lara from an isometric perspective. You travel around environments in the same way you would in a Tomb Raider game, with jumping across gaps and platforms, using a grappling hook to swing across walls, and using firearms to attack enemies. Even a lot of the puzzle solving you do here is very Tomb Raider, like pushing large boulders onto pressure pads and timed door switches. But we also have a load of directional strategy with enemies and how combat works. Despite being isometric, you use the right analog stick to have Lara aim in that direction and tap ZR to shoot in that direction. All of the stages and enemies are based around increasing strategy with dodging around and firing at any direction around you. You start with just enemies that run up at you, but you'll find enemies that explode upon death, spread poison, some you have to lay down a bomb and kill before they auto-revive, and mini-bosses that send out projectiles upon death. Combining that with the fact that your dual pistols have infinite ammo in Tomb Raider tradition, but all other weapons use an ammo gauge, there's a lot of strategy with you having to constantly look at what's around you to know where to dodge and where to position yourself, as well as how much ammo is left and what weapons you need to use. As far as difficulty goes, I wouldn't put it up there with other twin-stick shooters. Some of the enemies get a little crazy fast, but they're all easy to predict and dodge around. As long as you're not just button mashing mindlessly, it's not terribly difficult. And then we get to Temple of Osiris, which is a bit more like a streamlined version of Guardian of Light. It still plays the same, but it's no longer stage-based. You have a large hub you explore and go into tombs that act as the levels. It also changes how gems worked. In the Guardians of Light, they just added to your score. But in this game, you use gems to open up chests to get special bits of equipment with rings and amulets that are sort of RNG-based, giving you different effects. Essentially turning gems from a score increaser to a currency. Osiris also enhanced a lot of the things you do and the set pieces. Instead of running around a flat room or area fighting off a T-Rex during a boss fight, you might be on a big spherical boulder having to run around Mario Galaxy style as a giant scarab monster goes onto it and tries to attack you. Now, as all of this comes together, we're looking at a pretty fair amount of content and length. The internet claims each game to be about 6 hours apiece, but I was well over the 10-hour mark by the time I finished Guardian of Light and began playing Temple of Osiris. It is true that I went into the optional challenge temples littered around Guardian of Light to get that special equipment, but I doubt that was 4 hours of my time. Maybe skipping them could lower your playtime from 10 hours to 8 for each title, giving you a total of 16 hours instead of 20, but even that might be a stretch. Next up is presentation. Visually, these games both look really nice. All the lighting and physics these games originally had are here as well, all the way down to foliage moving around as you move through it. And with performance, it depends on which title you're playing. Guardian of Light is great for the most part. Docked mode pretty much stays at a locked 30 FPS from start to finish, having little stutters here and there, and you only get small drops when going into handheld mode. Temple of Osiris, however, has a lot of frame drops in docked and handheld play. It's noticeable but not horrible in most areas, but whenever you get into places with a lot of water moving around, it can get pretty jarring. Next up is battery life. The Lara Croft collection gives the original and light models a battery range of about 3 to 4 hours, while the V2 and OLED models get 5.5 to 6.5 hours. In conclusion, Lara Croft returns to the handheld world with fairly good results. Now, the downside, online co-op was removed for this new release, and Temple of Osiris has a lot of frame rate problems in both docked and handheld. But Guardian of Light plays well, and this is still a fun set of twin-stick shooter puzzle games starring the famous Tomb Raider. Reviews to Go rates the Lara Croft collection for the Nintendo Switch a 7.5 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.